That's good, yeah. Let's see if we get more cushion. Yeah,
Tushies for the tushies.
They're very strong.
Yeah, and there's some yoga mats back here. I know, right? It's such a nice mix. Would you ladies like some yoga mats? To sit down in the winter. They're about 100 pounds, so I'm going to let you choose your own. Miriam. Yeah.
What kind of tea?
Steve, if there's a...
Is that going to work?
You make it swing?
Maybe. Is that dangerous?
No, not at all.
Just
Wow, yeah, that's
not dangerous.
That's a great idea.
Everyone is vomiting in the
I love that.
What
yeah, it looks like an installation, Hector. Completely unsafe.
I don't know where I'm going to be sitting. Let's have a look. That looks good, right? Yeah, that's cool.
Steven, I'm going to take this cushion, and I think I'm going to sit here. Whose is that? That's mine. Do you mind if I sit here? Or you want to sit next to your girlfriend? I see that.
Far away
The blue one? Okay, cool. Okay, wow.
Oh my God, thank you, Hector.
My pleasure.
I never been to class, but
Never made to the class, but she's here for the review. Yeah.
what's Hector?
Yeah.
She's an original. I remember the first year with John, right?
Oh yeah. So what is this class?
With John Stillwell.
Probably yeah.
2009.
You did the same course. Okay, great. So who has done this course before? Just so you can all feel out of it.
I mean,
What is that?
halfway?
What is that? All of it?
I took it
Halfway? No? Okay.
with that Lama.
With the Dalai Lama, that's good.
In India, yeah. I learned everything. All right, well, I'm going to solve this.
Rachel, are you ready or not ready? Okay.
I'm waiting for the water, but it's not coming.
I want to do a little prayer.
I don't know what to do.
I want to do a little.
Okay.
So, for those of you who know, we usually start any kind of teaching with an offering of the mandala, which is really to get your mind to think, whatever I have, I will generate it with my mind, and I'll offer it to that thing in the universe that generates my understanding, yeah, the highest virtue. And so you've got to imagine the most perfect, it doesn't cost you anything because it's your mind, right? So the most perfect universe ever, and you offer it. If Master Shantideva could see you now. So that's the first thing we're going to do, and we're going to do a chant. And if you don't know the chant, it's fine. We have this hand gesture which signifies the four corners of the universe and the center of the universe called Mount Mirror. And everything that exists in the mind and in physicality is represented there. Towards the end, then we give it to the Guru power that we can perceive. That's okay, but then the next part is this thing called taking refuge. And we do that 3 times because we get some kind of protection for this thing we're about to think about. We get a kind of protection from nominality, a protection from a destructive everyday normal life, if we understand that everything in the universe comes from us. It doesn't have a nature. And that kind of refuge is really what generates the power to stay in the field of whatever we're learning. And that's why we do those 2 things at the beginning. So let's do that with the right motivation. See, the sounds don't make any difference. The words might trigger an idea, or if it's your language, it will trigger a feeling. But it's really what's in your heart when you're doing that. And if you're sitting there going, I understand that whatever I have, I give it away because that's the only way I can get everything. And I understand that that will stay because everything has no nature from its own side. It's my projection. So I understand the way things truly function, where they stay. That's really what we're doing. So we want to do a meditation, but instead of a meditation, because I'd like to do this part no more than an hour, and then informal stuff your face and do whatever you like, okay? Quickly, let's go around and say, my name is Hector, and I'm here because I want to internalize this thing. I'm excited to go through these 3 chapters over the next 3 weeks, because I just want to remember it more, because I believe it can change my world. So something like that, so who you are and why you're here, you really know. Where are you from?
Okay, my name is Claudia. Actually, I don't live here anymore. I live in Peru. I used to live here and study a lot in the Jules, Hector, and so many teachers. So now I'm not in the class formally, but I'm here because I don't want to forget. It's a nice reminder, and also because I'm teaching yoga and some meditations there. So it's good to refresh and realize.
There in Peru.
Yes.
I'm Lee, and I've taken classes before, but I always find that whenever I hear something again, that I get something else out of it, or I get a deeper understanding of it. So.
Steven. I don't know if I've taken this class before, but it's awesome. You guys are in my house, so I have to be.
likes them, one loves him. Follow that.
Yeah. I'm Paul. I've taken this class before. I was told that you need to hear this stuff at least 3 times for it to germinate inside you. And I think Peter has a remarkable ability at interpreting this stuff. So, happily.
Thank you, Paul. Joyful effort.
My name is Jacqueline, and I'm just very happy because I've done that too. And experientially, I found that after doing the homework, after class, it was like a cup, it was like a boulder, the ripple effect. It was like, oh, okay.
Nice. Cool, thank you.
I'm Rachel. I'm from Brooklyn, I guess. I'm here because I want to be a better person and this is the best way.
Oh.
I'm Miriam, I'm from Mexico, and I just had the chance to go to one of the classes over there, and I show as well, so I might keep going to students and teach here, and she invited me, and then I was asking all the time, like, when's the next one? And then she's like, it's over. But then I saw that you guys were going to it, I'm like, that's even better.
Cool, yeah. And you're here, right? You're in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hiko from Japan, and I raised by Buddhist family, and then so I'm here for like re-educate myself with the different language and different perception. It's really interesting, like it feels like a different thing, and then the mind frame will be different. I really enjoy it.
Priscilla. I'm from originally from Brazil, and I think I'm here because Romy kind of suggests, she was like, we should go into meditation, and I really like them yoga with her, but I don't know very little, so I would like to learn more. She said I would go to this class with patient, and then I was like, okay, that's
Let's go now.
I'm Sarah, and I'm here because we just finished the class last week, and put that in stuff, and I could definitely use a lot of help. So I'm happy to talk about patients and anything, everything, all of it. Amazing.
So I'm Javier, originally from Venezuela. Multicultural.
I know. Completamente.
Wow. Well, I've been studying with Hector, like some of us here, for a few years already, and this class specifically, and the past one, I was in the process of my wedding, so kind of like wedding and work took the front seat of my life instead of what should have been, which was the teaching. But that in itself was a teaching, so I'm here to review what I didn't get to review.
Yeah. Cool. I'm grateful you're all here, and we're here in a slightly different context that we normally are in the 3 So I want you to relax. It's not going to be like me teaching. Okay? It's we have the text. I've transferred the meaning of the text, and we have the text read. This is a beautiful text from the year 700, roughly. She's like 50 off. by an Indian standard, like a master of these philosophies from India before Buddhism went to Tibet. Yeah, his name was Shantideva, and the book was called The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So this is a guide on how to live this life like a bodhisattva. So what the hell is a bodhisattva?
is to liberate everybody from
Being,
suffering.
because it could be a chick. Yeah.
No, I
Doesn't
mean,
have to be a guy. Yeah.
yeah, actually everybody is a
Okay.
human being.
Yeah.
They want to escape from suffering, but to help everybody escape from suffering.
So for you to be a bodhisattva, you have to have bodhicitta,
Yeah.
which can be translated as Buddha mind. Yeah? But it doesn't mean that. It means
Get everything.
the wish to get enlightened for the sake of all living beings. Yeah? So we're studying a guidebook, a how-to. We have just finished studying, and you all got parts of it. Yeah? And I got a ton of it because I had to teach it. But I'm just like you. I'm on planet Earth, and I live my ups and downs, like all of us, on planet Earth. There is no respite here for people that are of this planet, that have this planetary kind of experience. Everything that comes goes. Everything changes all the time. And the way we engage with that world is what causes most of our suffering. This book teaches us how do we turn that around, still be in this experience, and have a complete perspective, 360 shift of what that is. Complete different experience. See this as nothing disturbing your state of mind. Experience it truly that way, as if we're experiencing this right now. So this is a guide to do that. And it came in 10 chapters. The first half of the book said, this is all the reasons why you should get this amazing thing. And then it gave us 6 perfections, 6 techniques that if we perfect these states of mind, we can reach that status, I guess, or that perspective, or that view of reaching enlightenment for the sake of living. Become a person, which is a rare, highly impossible thing. But do it. Yeah, because we have. Okay. So my first question, I guess, is we're talking on the chapter of patience. There are 6 of these perfections that this book covers. Like I said, the first half of the book was covering how do you even get that mindset? How do you get to a point where you're so free from the troubles of the world and your own personal problems and the dilemmas that you can have a heart-opening experience to say, it's possible to get liberated from this craziness, from this view. It's possible not to suffer, and I want to get everyone else there too. That's a truth, that's a real thing. So the first half of the book was, how do we get there? How do you even get that want, that wish? And then they said, well, you've got to develop these 6 states of mind. And the first state of mind is the state of mind of generosity, giving. Yeah? If you can generate in your mind, one of the practices is build the impulse to give people 3 kinds of things, right? First is material stuff. If someone is hungry, feed them. If someone is shelterless, shelter them. If someone is lacking money, give them money. Yeah? But don't do it outside of your scope. Begin building that want. That will change your mind a little bit towards that. The second state of mind that you develop is? We finished generosity, 6 states of mind that you develop. They're teaching us to get bodhicitta. We call it morality, right? Or the ethical, yeah? But we won't understand that deeply, why ethics works in this system of transforming consciousness, until you get to the chapter on wisdom, the last chapter. You won't understand how come living in a way that's congruent with some kind of ethics will truly free you from suffering. We got hints at it, but to really understand, you've got to understand wisdom. But tell me why ethics would provide you with everything you ever want.
It creates the
It both creates the karma and the merits for the experience. It also, when you are aware of behaving ethically, you're having space in your mind for it. Ill thoughts, to say it in Latin.
And what would ill thoughts do?
Well, it will bring more of that suffering to
So
It will perpetuate.
it will perpetuate that state of mind.
It locks you in an
In an ignorance cycle. Yeah? So acting in an ethical way is actually the key to have every pleasure you could ever want if you just understood that. Yeah? And so they covered a chunk of that. And that's the second perfection. First perfection is giving, the second one is living an ethical way of life, and there's a whole bunch of lists of why and how. We'll get more into that. We have gotten into that. And then the third one is the perfection of patience, which means not being patient waiting for the bus. You know, it's not, that doesn't help anyone. It's not like, oh, I'm patiently going to sit here, see if my hair grows. There's nothing to do with that. That's not going to happen. Patience means
Not getting
the
angry.
art of not getting angry, and there's a little bit missing which I know you, when you normally do. Yeah? Yeah, and see if you can get this. We are in such cycles, self-perpetuating cycles of existence. Our minds are triggering the same response from similar stimuli over and over and over. And that subconscious turning of experience is how we see this world. To break that, one major thing we have to stop doing is get angry when we're supposed to. Because when we're supposed to is what perpetuates the dark and the dark and the dark and the dark and the dark. Just take one out and you can't do that. There's nothing to relate to. So the big thing, the number one thing out of our emotions that can begin breaking that cycle is not getting angry when everyone else tells you you should, when your impulses tell you you should. And at the very basic animalistic instinct of punching somebody that punched me, hurting somebody that hurt me, making war on someone that's making war on me, eye for an eye, that kind of thing, that just perpetuates the same thing. If you want a different result, you need a different technique. And this is profound, so that's what we're going to cover today. In context, the next perfections are, after you figured how to do that, a few practices on how to do that, the next one is the perfection of joyful effort, which means getting happy about doing it. That's all it means. It means you then also habituate your mind to go, same schema, but about a positive result. Now, every time I do an awesome thing, I'm getting happy. So you're coloring every activity with joy, which means if everything comes from what you're doing, everything is going to give you joy. That's why you're doing it. Everything. You take a poo, you think of joy. I'm not kidding. Not after. I mean during.
Sorry to
But everything's got to be colored with joy. Yeah. And that will give you the same result. Joy. And it gives you anger. Joy gives you joy. And then after we figure out joy, the next one is concentration. We begin to focus the mind on focusing the mind. Being still onto things. Because then that's like getting a broad light into a laser. And you're going to get that kind of speedy result. You're going to delve through the fabric of the illusion that is this life. And lastly, we study wisdom, which is the view you end up holding when you look at existence and it's telling you it's a certain way and you know it's a different way. For certainty, not imaginary, not hoping, not with doubt. You know. Because you've worked the logic, you've practiced it in your head enough. And then you can see a completely different system appearing in your world. And it was always there, and you didn't know it. And you feel like you were a caged animal that just got let out into the Amazon forest. That was always here, but you had to go. But you can't do that until you figure out how to get out of the cage. And wisdom does that. It's a view that lets you see exactly the same thing in an inside-out way that frees you from being trapped in here. And trapped in here means you locked by your habits, your responses, all the way down to death, the way you perceive death. So that's what we're studying, and that's what we covered. Tonight's thing is on patience, So not getting angry. I'm going to go around again, and it's your part. Sorry, I talked more than normal. Probably are, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, the camera's on.
Streaming.
Streaming. I think I pressed record too.
Is
Oh, do you want to turn it over this way?
I mean, I think we could actually move you closer.
Up to you.
You could use
The stool. Yeah. So let me go to who's a good reader?
Dave.
Me.
Yeah. Cool. What I want to do is get the verses from the original book, and then we talk about them. Yeah. So read under the black line is the first verse. So read that all those verses up to the blue.
Anger destroys good karma. A single instance of anger destroys whatever good deeds you may have amassed in thousands of eons spent in practices like giving or making offerings to those who have gone to bliss. There is no kind of deed as evil as the act of anger. There is no spiritual hardship in patience. Practice it then. Concentrate on patience in many different ways.
So let's talk about that. How do you put that into practice?
Very easy.
Yeah, no problem. So any questions about the words in the verse? Any comments? Some people have objections. They want to debate. Master should debate.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it means. Those who have gone to bliss, exactly, is it influence?
Yeah. So, it says, a single instance of anger destroys whatever good deeds you may have amassed in thousands of years of practices that generate good virtue, like giving, making offerings, and the rest, to the highest objects, Buddhas, right? So it's saying, a single moment of anger, take it literally, a tiny moment where you get angry, if you have a storehouse of virtue about to explode into your world, into all the good things you experience, the nice tasting this, a nice beautiful environment, magnificent city with clear skies, no one bombing you, clean clothes relatively, a single moment of anger destroys thousands of years of that kind of goodness that generates your world. So no problem with that?
Well, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
But let me know if it's outside the scope.
No scope, outside scope.
Well, it's more about karma. Because I remember speaking with someone and then saying like, oh, don't worry if you have like a single bad thought or whatever, because you need an intention to commit a crime. So like if I'm angry and then it just goes away and I don't dwell on it. Like I'm kind of just like agreeing with this because it feels natural to agree that anger is destructive. But as far as like the principles of karma go, can you kind of explain how that works?
Cool. Before I explain it, someone else care to comment? Because let's think terms, right? We're reading teachings that say bodhisattva, karma, stream of mind, quantum bliss, all these terms. They're not referring to something historical. They're referring to you and your heart and my heart and your reality, your breathing, the moments you get upset, the moments that things go horrible, the things that everything goes beautifully for you. The moments you are completely still and see the most magical thing in the world. They're referring to us. So what is karma? The movement of the mind is karma. So understand that it's saying when Rachel's mind moves, that is karma. Is there anything that is outside karma that Rachel is experiencing? What?
Oh, that I'm experiencing?
Yeah, right. Is there anything that Rachel can you point me to something that Rachel does not experience?
I know a karma, it's not a karma she's experiencing.
She's experiencing the perception of that kind. Sorry, otherwise she couldn't have it in her mind, conceiving of it now.
Well, I'm not conceiving. I
Is
could
your mind-
conceive, but I couldn't perceive your perception of your karma from your.
You have your perception of my perception. Is there anything outside your mind? That your mind
I feel
touches?
like I made this argument before and you said I was wrong.
I'm having a...
There is something outside of my mind.
What is
We
it?
try to quantify things by saying that they are of themselves from their own
Do you have a
time.
perception of that
we
thing?
can never touch that.
That's true. That's true.
I think there are things outside of it.
Can you verify how they exist? Can you tell me how they exist outside of you?
They exist.
As soon as you put your mind on it, that's how they exist for you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
But like,
This is important. Yeah? Is there something we're talking about? Absolutely. There's a couch and there's a thing.
you know what? I got in a debate over recently, and they said, okay, so if a tree falls in the forest
Mm-hmm.
and no one's there to hear it, did it make a sound or not? And my first reaction was, well, no, because it's dependent upon the receiver. But then what are we saying? There's not things out there.
This is good. No, we're not saying that. We just said that there are things out there.
Yeah, but then when you asked me that one question just 2 seconds ago, I don't know.
I thought the Buddha said, like, I'm not going to entertain that because I can't verify a person.
The Majjhimika way says that there are things that exist. There are things that exist. How they exist is a big question. You can never find a solid, single way that they exist, separate to your mind engaging with it and having that experience of it, that thing. Yeah? And that thing is in your mind. You're perceiving that thing. What's karma? The movement of the mind. Is there anything that exists for you that is outside karma?
But once you're saying for you, you're making it a
As
matter of
soon,
mind.
as soon as I
There
say
are
for
things that
you,
may exist outside of my perceptions and my thinking about them. But I
until,
don't think about them
until,
until I think about them.
and then when you do,
Then they relate to me.
and
somehow.
before they didn't
They
exist, and then they do. For you.
Well, whether they exist or not is a question. They don't exist for me.
They don't. I mean, they literally don't until they do. So then when they do, your mind moved from something not being there and then being there. This is a very important point, and we're going to get into it. We're not going to get into it. We got into it in the karma thing, but we're asking about moments of anger, okay? We're building patience. Because the one thing that this first thing said is if you have anger, whatever goodness you have stored in your mind that is generating the goodness in your world, that will be eroded by chunks with every moment of anger. So his first comment is, first thing you've got to do is stop getting angry. Because that will stop the erosion. It's like you're building castles, and then, which are magnificent because you're doing beautiful things in the world, but then at the same time, if you have irritation or anger, you're undoing the foundations.
And you can feel that.
Of course you do, when you get angry.
Yeah, if you've ever lost your temper,
Yes.
like even before the teachings, you know, I would be like, shh.
Yeah, you just did it.
Excuse me, what
Yeah.
did I just do?
Yeah.
That feels horrible.
But sometimes you don't react. You still have the feeling. And so what is different? I mean,
Lovely, that's where I was getting to. Good, good. Hold it for a let me see if I get there. Shut up. Yeah.
Don't get angry.
Don't get angry.
Oh, sure.
So you said, Rachel, you said, what was your question?
it was whether or not it counts. If
Do I
it's
count as
just-
getting
it's just a
angry?
thought.
Yeah. And what did Claudia just say? She said sometimes you're
Yeah.
having a response, you're having an awareness that here comes the irritation and anger, right? And then that wasn't my conscious thought. I didn't intend that,
Autonomy.
which was your question, yeah? Karma's got to have the 4 parts of karma to make it a complete karma, to have a solid result. I didn't intend that. And practice, you enter this kind of silence when you're really integrating all these bits of information that we're learning, when you understand that every impulse you're having is old karma, right? Old times you got angry and yelled at someone. You felt the feeling and then you vomited it out and said, "You're the reason for I hate you," yeah? You yelled and then you might have gone, "Shit, what did I do?" Or "I hope they didn't notice," or "I'll think of a way that I make it nice." They deserve that. You know, like something, even though it felt terrible, we rationalize it and then we've got that as kindness, yeah? And that, meeting that, here comes stimuli. I'm in a room with you guys, yeah? The stimuli is like, now I want to get angry because she asked me a question that's hard, yeah? So my old response, the seeds from before, my karma, my mind moved, karma, movement of the mind. I don't like this, it feels uncomfortable. So here comes my old thing. I have zero control over my mind if I'm an untrained person, and so I yell at you. I yelled at you, I caught myself yelling. I did intend it, I pointed it out to you. I wanted you to feel something. I just didn't have the presence of mind to hold it back. Yeah, so it went from old karma ripening and then new action taken. See, the stimuli wasn't you making me angry. The stimuli was, you asked a question, that's got no nature. You said words. Does karma work this way or that way? And then something in me arose, I can't catch it, it's so fast. Because we're doing this minute by minute by minute. I can't catch it, I'm riding that wave of the movement of my mind, and I flip over into a reaction from that, not that, from that. And I just colored my mind with the same color that was coming from before. Karma generates more karma, generates more karma, generates more karma, of the same type. And I walk away and I blame Rachel. It's your fault. Yeah? Complete ignorance, complete blindness as to why I'm having a shitty experience of life.
Well, if you don't react, so the effort to maintain calm, even though you want to kill a person, you're like inside, and you understand in that moment that you are completely ignorant and you need to turn it out, but you don't react. Is that some virtue? Because I try
No, we
to
studied karma,
understand.
right? Before I go there, did you understand what I was just saying?
Yeah.
Yeah? Does it satisfy your question? Yeah? That's why shamatha, the practice of completely stilling your mind, complete concentration, is so important, because you need that kind of awareness, trained, to catch the flip over from the before to the reaction to now. Karma ripening, before I plant the same crap, I've got to create some kind of gap, and then I choose. Yeah, and then you start choosing. I'm going to plant a shitty karma without checking my impulse. It'll be the same as before. I'm going to plant a half-assed karma, like, I won't yell at him, what an asshole, you know, like you have the whole conversation in your mind, and then you're doing that. Yeah, let's talk about that in a second. Or a neutral karma, you've habituated, I don't care. And it's just neutral, it doesn't affect me, but it might not be a positive thing. Or you plant a virtue. Oh, here comes an angry person. They make me angry all the time. I can't wait to not get angry at them. Let's see what they say next. Oh, okay. No, that's not true. I did this. Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, nothing to do with them, to do with you. The one that you asked, I let you answer that. If someone is struggling against the impulse of negativity, if you're fighting with your own impulse for negativity, like a very wild horse that you're on top of, and you're trying to turn it away from running into a crowd, right? That kind of effort, what is that?
Well,
A negative, a neutral, or a positive? The intent, the intention.
Well, the
Grab the intention.
The intention is positive, but if it feels like I'm thinking also about joyful effort.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think it's good. Like the net karma is probably
Cool,
good.
the net karma.
That's
That's fantastic. The net karma. Like, you know, the money.
Or it's plus 10 but a negative 3, you still get plus 10.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's still good, but if you're not enjoying, if you're not taking joy in like wrangling that emotion, I think it still plants a smaller negative. But I have a question.
Yeah.
If his karma is manifesting a past karma, I don't have control of it. It's just arising, right? So that means I have to just train more. I have to.
Correct. Yeah, that's all it means. It's like,
disappear.
and the only way you get training is the more the horse goes wild and you're trying to rein it in. And you're like, oh, I did this before. This time I need to do a little bit more left or a little bit more right. However, there are texts that say that particular karma, even though it feels negative, the net positive karma you were talking about, is one of the greatest karmas, greatest positive karmas, because it is a habit to go against evil, your own darkness. And in that sense,
and it's intentionally generated.
It's completely intentional, and karma is 90+% intention. The action has very little to do with it other than what we validly perceive as correct. So if I get a knife and I cut this flesh, or I cut that flesh, yeah, is that a good karma or a bad karma? Why? Right, if he's just gotten bitten by a snake and I'm trying to take the poison out and it'll help him, it's a bloody awesome karma. If he's not expecting it, I'm just using it as an example. It might be a problem.
But I prove myself really when I'm practicing more, when I'm in those days that I'm meditating more and sort of like practicing really things that used to affect me, like even people that used to want me, doesn't affect me anymore. It doesn't. It's like you desactivate a bomb.
Yeah.
It's not a, I don't have a reaction because that's a bomb.
Yeah, that's cool. But we get used to that and we forget. There's one more thing I want to say about your question though. If we get used to the reaction, I agree with you, we keep doing that as a negative schema. We just feel bad about trying and not
Because I end
succeeding.
up feeling bad half the time, like, oh, I'm so stupid for having this reaction. You're like, oh God, I probably did such terrible things in my past life.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
No, but you see, there is the reason for joyful effort, which will cover next
And
week.
self-compassion too, which is not necessarily in the 6 perfections, but like it's not you the one who's stupid, it was past Javier, past
stupid.
Rachel the one who's stupid, and that person ain't here anymore.
yeah, I said, as many times I can see myself, my past self, in many people. Like I see it was me. Compassion of the person.
No compassion for them.
Oh my God, I mean, it was totally me before. Thank God I'm not that way anymore. Yeah.
So I like that question because you're talking about the specifics of, okay, I get we're not supposed to get angry, but I do get angry, right? Put up your hand if you don't get angry. Right?
Yeah.
Now,
To who?
yeah. Put up your hand if you don't intend to get angry. If you don't sit there and go, this next moment, I'm just going to be an asshole.
Sometimes I do.
If you do, yeah, okay. With anger?
Well, I try for it to be with the best, but sometimes anger shows up.
No, but I'm saying, see, there's a difference. I've been angry too. Yeah, but I don't think I sit there and go, how can I really hurt them?
Oh yeah.
I don't think I do that anymore.
No, not
I used to,
anymore,
I think
right?
as a teenager, I used to go,
Oh, yeah.
how do I really burn
I used to do that as
you
an
know?
adult too.
Oh, that was like a bullying thing.
Let me know. Yeah. So the fact is, Look, last night we went to the opening of Planetary. This friend of ours who made this beautiful film, yeah, about interdependence. It's stunning about our world, and it's stunning because of its message, but more so because it has a beauty about why humanity and everything else on this globe is together one thing. How there is no separation between your mind moving and the reality you're experiencing. And at the end of it, they interviewed, I don't know, the Karmapa, 100 people who are all PhDs, super brainiacs, meditators, scientists, astronauts, the whole thing. And at the end, I asked the director, I said, we only got to see a few snippets of the interviews, and you could see it was just a magnificent thread of the same thinking from different perspectives, yeah, from different disciplines. And I said, what was it like to sit in front of those people day in, day out? What did you feel about humanity from being with them, from these people that are, have been thinking about these things? And then you meet someone in India or you meet somebody in Germany, and they're all telling you this deep truth about ourselves. And I expected a long answer, and he said they all had kindness, that unstoppable kindness. And they had a kind of sanity, wisdom, that was unshakable for them. So he said they were compassionate, but loving, and wise. They saw truth. They didn't make up stories. They were just seeing things how they were, and they were accepting of that thing. We get angry. Accept it. You have old karmas. This is reality. Fighting against it in a way to change the habit, so one day you don't even remember that you were that way, that's good. Beating yourself up is just creating more negativity. Be kind to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself. And say, oh, I'm making my best efforts. Have some joy about that. And then have the wisdom to know the sanity of what you're doing. I thought that answer was just perfect to say the wisest people that I've ever met on the planet had two things: kindness and sanity. It's stunning.
So here talking about anger and patience and all that, one of the most challenging non-patient moments that show up to me is slightly abstract, right? Because it has a lot to do with, like, for example, ISIL, and all the issues in the Middle East, and Israel and Palestine, and all that stuff. And there's obviously I have many logical reasons of why I shouldn't get angry about it, and the cause and effect, and it's my karma, it's their karma, it's really outside of my scope of control. But it still doesn't eliminate the feeling that I feel like, we should break some heads and drop some bombs. And I know it's completely wrong, and I know it's the wrong wish to have, but I honestly, truly, sometimes on Sunday mornings watch the news, and I wonder why we're not killing more of them. And after that, I wonder that, I feel completely like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking like that.
Yeah, because you got some.
But it really is, it's very real. And I've been called out by friends on that a lot. It doesn't go away. And it's one of those cases where you're supposed to feel like that, so then for the perfection of patience, then technically you shouldn't really engage in that feeling. But it's still there, and it's, the most difficult thing about it, I think, is for me, it's so abstract, the concept of war, because I have never even been in war zone, and it still pisses me off to levels of.
It's funny because from describing it, I don't know which side you're referring to, which is good, because I probably don't.
This is regardless of the side.
Yeah,
it
I
would
know.
be the same, right?
So what's other people's comments or advice? Because I've got one that I don't want you to talk about.
like I always think of it like devil's advocate. So what they probably feel the same way about whatever they're doing, like so passionate because they're giving like we're being shown how malicious and evil they are, and then they're saying like, okay, now we need to get them, and they are probably being shown the same thing, and they're getting whoever they're getting. So like, what makes it then better for us to do the same thing to them? Why would we do the same thing to them if they're like why?
Sure, yeah, no, it's valid, and it's a question that I have, like, I have pondered that view, certainly, from both sides, because,
From any side.
yeah, I mean, it's, because everybody's experiencing the world from their side, and they have their own stories about us, and we have our own stories about them. You know, democratically speaking, I think that most people are against ISO than against the US.
ISIS, right?
Well, depends. Yeah, it depends on who is reading what ISO, ISIS, IS, the Caliphate.
But anyone else? So you're saying basically that
When you, I don't know, when you put yourself in their shoes, you can feel compassion for them. I'm not saying you can feel happy for them. It's not mistake. Or not compassion, or not happy, but not. It's compassion. It's like you empathize.
I think slightly different. I don't go into like politics. I go much closer, I guess, to the ground in a way of my feelings, and I identify with the suffering, and I stay there because that allows me to tap into my compassion and for what is happening for everyone. And I know that the only reason people act like that is because they're in intense pain. And then I can hold on to my compassion for them. I have a bit of a hard time getting beyond that into what's going on in our leaders' minds. You know, how they can make the kind of decisions that they do is a kind of decision-making process that I don't really understand because I can't have a very hard time understanding how anyone could turn off that part of themselves that identifies with the suffering that's being caused by those decisions. So I guess, you know, it's also another reason I don't look at the news, honestly, because I'm not sure that it's so healthy to be entertaining those kinds of thoughts. But when I do, I find it very hard not to. The suffering that's happening.
But I think it's important to consider that this is a projection that's coming from you. So there's no leader out there making a decision apart from the leader that you're projecting onto this space. And if I heard everything correctly, because I was kind of moving around, but if you're saying like sometimes you just feel that the solution is war or violence, it goes to what Master Shantideva was saying. I don't know if I'm in the right part, but that's only going to perpetuate war. Like, war is not going to solve anything. All it's going to do is plant seeds for future violence for the people, for everyone involved, right? So if you really want the problem to be solved, the thoughts need to center around peace. And I think, it's like considering a positive, right, to fill the negative, instead of a negative to be the negative. If I heard what you were saying correctly.
Anything else?
I was thinking, just when you said that, because I feel like I've also had like trying to separate and know that I'm doing this like shitty thing. And it helped when you talked about like feeling that anger is an energy, and like I thought of how if I can sort of step back a little bit and experience that energy, not that I do it, but the idea of before my mind labeled it anger, and before my mind went like negativity and like
And all the stories that come with them.
Yeah. That then I could, that it makes working with it feel a little bit different.
It's just right. It's just energetic movement. If you catch it, it's just you have an impulse, and before you call it all those things, you can say, "Oh, I'm about to call that. I know this impulse. It's like kill the people in the TV or whatever it is. The impulse. You start labeling it that way. I think they're all really good answers, good techniques. So one of them lets you be in the moment, right? The other one is telling you the ignorance of acting in the same way towards something to stop it. It's like putting more petrol in a tank that you want to have no petrol. You know, it's like you're adding more of the same thing you want less of, which is that we are drilled to have that state of mind, and we are drilled mostly by media. Yeah. So there's an answer about like still watching media, but there's that kind of level answer. But the philosophical answer is saying, let's step into the idea that if we went into that notion of just dropping a bomb on them or whoever they are, how does your mind conceive that that will stop it? Because there's probably ignorance in that. It's probably, let's go there and bomb everyone. And then
this is why it's so astonishing to me when you hear someone like the Dalai Lama talk and they ask him, "Don't you hate the Chinese for what they've done?"
Yeah.
And for him, it's like, well, no, I don't hate them. I created them.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's stunning.
And to really live that way and believe that,
It's inside out.
in his heart, that's what he believes.
Yeah. It's inside out, and therefore is the no-no.
I mean, I haven't achieved that yet. But a connection that I made, though, when I was kind of verbalizing that was it's the same kind of logic where if someone who is depressed or who's suffering thinks that if they kill themselves, it will end. Like, because I kind of get the mindset maybe that you have when you're looking at this violence and you're like, I just want to smash it.
I want to stop it.
Like, I just want to silence it with
totally
force. But the thing is that the logic falters because it doesn't go past that point. It doesn't go past the force to the reverberations made by the force. And like maybe just pushing past it a little bit and thinking like, for me, it's like, you think about the bardo. If someone were to kill themselves, like, oh my God, what must that be like, getting ripped away from your body and then having to experience all that karma? So if that's the kind of parallel that my mind is making, because it's hard to like predict the future and see how karma works, but like, just that it would be bad times a million. For you.
Net loss, $1 million.
For you. For you and for everyone involved,
Well,
but only if it's through that mindset, because we can't know how other beings, because when you were talking about the news, I was thinking, okay, I get you, and I don't ever really watch the news unless I'm home with my dad. Like, what if it's a Buddha? What if all of these people are Buddhas? So then there's also that you can kind of play with a little bit too, maybe.
So to me, it comes down to, I love that you said it because it's so real to say that, what you just said, right? Most people that are good practitioners keep that stuff hidden, pushed down, don't share it, and it creates a problem. Yeah, because you're not dealing with it. You're dealing with I'm a good practitioner, I'm policing everyone. No, but that's not reality. That's not how things are functioning. You're not naming what you're doing. I mean, we all do this kind of overt, I'm a good Buddhist teacher. Look, my legs are crossed. I'm hurting, but I'm really good. You know, like you know, whatever it is that we do to cover the crap with a nice cloth. You know, great that you are aware that your mind is doing that. But this is where the training comes in. The training from the Buddhas say, it's your projection, ignorance will make you perpetuate the same old, same old. Wisdom means you can break the cycle by basically understanding where it comes from and doing the opposite. The only way you're going to have the strength of mind to go against that tension or that inertia is by having complete control of this mind that is uncontrollable, right? So meditation is the key. Study is the key. Compassion is the key. Ethics is the key. Understanding that when you're not watching the news, when you're not getting triggered, hooked by it, understanding prepares you for when you get hooked and triggered. Because you're right, you have no influence over the Middle East. You have no influence about the way the person on the news is reporting it to you. You have, you know, and apparently no control over whether you react to it or not.
I try to rationalize the feeling so much that I go into saying, well, but if I kill them all, then I stop them from hurting themselves with the karma that they're planting. So at the end, I would be doing a good thing.
Your motivation is good. You will perpetuate the value.
Well, but you know, the intention, motivation, you know.
So, but that's the thing.
You might get it to a net zero. And that would be fine. Like,
if he will be in the government,
Yeah.
and he suddenly had his awakening, and he's meditating, but he has to make decisions.
Yeah.
How difficult is to be the government, try to decide not to kill, and not to go to war, and not to do many things, and you have to make decisions.
My answer is ask Switzerland.
good answer.
You know, ask Bhutan. Iceland, Finland. Dennis.
I have a question. Maybe you just answer it. I completely missed it. But so, how do you deal with it? How do you not deal with it? How do you deal with them?
Yeah, good. Oh, no, I was going to go there. Is this helpful or not? Is it making sense? Or is it? Yeah. Kill them all.
Or you don't kill them. You find somebody to kill them.
Hire somebody.
How do you deal with real world? In brackets.
Well, no.
Okay. The way I go back to Stephen's question is, it's all my projection, right? So the Buddha said, things don't have a nature from their own side, meaning your movement of mind, your karma, determines how you experience a thing. And the very same thing that is a blissful object for you can be a painful object for another person. When the bomb is falling, a whole bunch of people are thinking, yay! And a whole bunch of people are thinking, whoa! And the bomb is exactly the same. Yeah? So, the bomb does not have the nature of destroying your mind from its own side. It is not saying, this object is not creating horrible things from this side.
Right.
It's creating good things and bad things, right?
Yeah.
Because they're getting pleasure and they're getting pain. So how do you deal with that?
There's another part that I'm remembering from the teachings. I still don't remember what section it's in. But there's the question that, like, should I, or is, like, what to do if people are hurting your lama or your family.
Right.
And the answer
Or
was...
your lama or the altars or the rituals.
Right,
Or
yeah, that was
objects.
included. And so the idea is that if, this might not apply in this case, but if they're enlightened, they won't feel pain. And then the other one is, it's their karma to experience pain, and you can't save them from that. It's their own projection onto the event.
If they're normal, if they're just like you and me, they're forced to experience the results of their karma. Yeah.
Okay, but how do you deal with people doing the bad things?
Yeah, great. Good question. I was getting to. And when I use that analogy, like the one I just gave, well, for me, when I get into binds that, I'm practicing really well, the more you practice, or the longer you practice, it seems that your outer problems are going away. They just get more subtle. Yeah? Just further away, big assholes leave you, seriously, you don't have big problems. Like I haven't had to look for work for the last God knows how many years. People have come to me for work, and I've still got the hope that, now our money's coming down because we're paying too much money for heating. But I've still got the, the hope that, people have been knocking on my door saying, I've got a job for you, or here is a couple of grand, or we gave you an apartment. Or things that get good after practicing. So then you get the problems every now and then, and you deal with them in a different way because they're getting less and less. But the way that I train my mind to not react to anger with anger, negativity with negativity, and still function in the world, is I remember I've got to do both. Because if I think it's all in my mind and it's just karma over there, and I apply that to walking in the middle of a street and seeing a bus coming my way and getting lost in, this is my projection of this is not self-existent, this is my projected legs and my projected body and my projected bus, and my projected bus just destroyed my projected legs, crushing my projected head, and it's hurting my projected body. Yeah? It functions that way for us. So this is where the field of karma, you have to work in that field. You can't. It's not enough to say, I will meditate on ISIS. It is the main trigger for my anger. I will meditate on ISIS or the Middle East problem. And it's generating so much energy in me that just meditating it will go away all by itself. You have to actively do something in that world that will satisfy your well-informed view of what will be the best for every single sentient you know on the planet. Compassion for everyone, equally. Using all the techniques that maybe the people that are bombing have the negative karma to think they're doing a good thing. I've got to stop them from that. Yeah? How do I help stopping them from hurting other beings? And it's not about winning this one versus that one. We are all caged animals. We're all caged in this suffering cycle. We're all lost in our view. It doesn't matter what color you are, which race you come from, which side of the fence you come from. When we're rotting under the earth, we're all the same. When we're birthed, we're the same. And the wants to be happy and be unhappy, we're the same. So your motivation to act in the world is respond to the world with the best knowledge you have of the world, but your motivation should be higher motivation, not sides. Sides create sides, like the Dalai Lama. Never have I heard him say a negative thing about the Chinese, not once.
Didn't he have anger though? Didn't he have like he just like in the movie at least he showed anger. Not, you know what I mean? Like
Kundun.
Yeah, he was like pissed. And he wasn't happy. He was like, oh okay, no worries.
No, he wasn't happy. He was sad, he cried, he had dreams of beings being murdered.
Yeah.
But he didn't see it as, now I've got to murder them.
Right.
He said, oh my goodness, I've got to stop this. Let's get people out of here, let's develop things, let's go out into the world. And he's doing activity to stop it nominally. And the thing is, then you've got to apply it to your everyday. When you have a boss that's hurting you, a partner that's hurting you, you know. You have to act in the way you can karma, which is the way you normally do. Do the best thing you can for the highest motivation. Tell me a period of time where we weren't killing each other on the planet.
We weren't here.
You know, this is what we do. We kill each other. You guys have to go, I know, yeah?
In like 20 minutes.
Okay. So that's really good to think about that. Is there a blanket answer? Oh, you've got to do this, and then you're okay.
I wanted like a checklist.
Yeah. Read the chat.
You may benefit from the meditation
Which is?
tumbling on your future self.
Yeah, I do a lot of
Like
time.
On your future self, on the one getting angry.
Don't always do it on my future self. I do it often.
I haven't heard
I
that.
do it often with the people that are there too.
But do you know what Tonglen is?
No.
Tonglen is a meditation that gets your mind still at first, and it develops wisdom and compassion in you. And then see some other being Yeah? And it can be a sick grandmother, it can be your ex-partner who's unhappy, someone with depression, whatever it is. It could be you tomorrow, about to have a big problem. Yeah? And this is a nice way to start. And so you see them with a problem, and then you imagine in meditation you appear next to them at that time, in that place. They don't know you're there. And then you imagine all their darkness gathered together, their pain or their hurt or whatever gathered together, and then you take it out of them and you burn it with goodness. Yeah? And then you see the effects of that. And it's more complicated than that. So that's Tonglen meditation. To do it on the moments you get triggered or you get angry or you get upset or you get hurt, begins to habituate that as the happiness as the response or the wisdom as the response rather than what you're normally used to. That's what it's doing, the technicality of how it works. So it's a really good way to do that. The thing is, do you want to let go of it? You see, do you want to let go of the pain that's causing you? Because you're the only ones that are having it. They're having their own pain, they're having their own pain, but you're having this particular annoyance. Not her, not me. I'm having my own, she's having her own. But this one is yours, Javier. It's your trigger and your problem. And this is the teaching saying, get real means, where is this? Oh my goodness, it's in here. How do you fix it? Not out there, in here, is what they're saying basically. And so whatever technique, and Master Shantate will go through the techniques we'll cover this week, next week, and the week after, which are awesome, a ton of techniques, yeah? And then the beginning of next course, he's going to say, they don't work.
What?
No. He's going to say they don't work. And he's saying it to piss you off, right? No, to question, how do you think they work? Without wisdom, they don't work. That's what he's saying. They don't exist out there. If you do get the checklist, if I do these 5 things, I'm never going to be angry again. Nothing works that way. That's why you've got to get deep to the wisdom chapter to go, how do things work? How does my mind look at the images on the screen with the Middle East problem, whatever, and instead of feeling anger or the habit I'm used to, all of a sudden I see a solution that can fix the world. And that gives me intense bliss or pleasure. Same images. That's a different kind. And that's generatable. Wisdom says that's possible. Because the screen's empty. All of a sudden, I'm watching that thing that used to get me hatred, and I just saw how I can solve a whole bunch of issues, maybe not those, but a whole bunch of issues of conflicts in my business. Because that motivated me. All of a sudden, a bliss comes. And it's workable in the mind of the perceiver. Okay. More questions? Or next verse? Feedback? Because we haven't done this before.
Awesome.
You sure?
Yeah.
I think we should also have some cookies.
It is yes. I don't know how to step on. Thank you. Thanks so much.
No, I'm good. So, do you want to read number 3? C3? It goes over the page. So this is probably one of the most famous verses from this chapter and the book.
Anger begins with being upset. It's useless to be upset. Anger feeds on the food of feeling upset. Then strengthened turns to smash me. And so then I will smash the sustenance that feeds this enemy of mine. My foe knows no other kind of work at all except to cause me pain. No matter what happens, I will never allow my joy to be disturbed. Feeling upset cannot accomplish my hopes and only makes me lose the goodness that I have.
Go to the next. It's still going.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the blue. Yeah,
Okay.
that's still.
If there is something you can do about it, why should you feel upset? If there is nothing you can do about it, what use is being upset?
And those two are like the most famous. They couldn't get out of my mind after I read them in 1997. If there's something you can do about the problem,
Do it.
why are you upset? Shouldn't you be fixing it? Yeah. Now, if there's nothing you can do about it, how does being upset help you? It's just ruining your mind more. There's no point in being upset. Upset has no place in the mind. It just ruins your goodness. You either fix it, because you can fix it, and if you cannot, why add upsetness to an already shitty situation? It's just going to color your mind, and it's going to make everything look worse. Does it help? Doesn't fix the problem. Definitely doesn't fix the problem. And if you want to fix the problem, you better have a non-upset mind. You better have a clear mind. The one that can see through the illusion, you know. And to me, that's stunning. That's really something awesome. Anyone want to talk about that one? Well, I guess you gave your hands.
It's also just exhausting.
To be upset all the time. Yeah.
It's exhausting and it drains you, and then maybe even less resources for dealing.
So he's talking, okay, no use in being upset. Read the next two. Yeah? Then he says, what?
Perfect patience is like any other habit and can be developed with practice. There is nothing in the world which does not come easily if you make a habit of it. Make then a habit of bearing the small pains and thus endure the greater. And the next one is, patience is a decision, a state of mind. Some, when they catch sight of their own blood, rise to a higher ferocity. Some, when they see another person's blood, faint and fall unconscious. All of this derives from either steadfastness or cowardice in the mind. Learn then to disregard harms and never allow any pain to touch you. Hurt may come, but the wise never let suffering cloud their clarity of mind.
So what do you think that said?
I don't get the blood thing.
Yep, cool. Someone explain the blood thing.
Saying like some people see their own blood and then they get like excited, like and ferocious.
Like if you're in battle.
But like normally you would see your own blood and be like, oh shit, that's not good. And then he said some people see the other people's sight of others' blood and they get pain.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that there's any self-existent nature to the blood.
Oh,
So-
that's
He
The
said,
point is, blood doesn't make you either,
okay. I was like,
yeah.
wait, so one is the fire, I don't.
No, it's not that. It's just about there's no
Just-
nature to blood. Blood is this red liquid.
Yeah.
And when some people look at it, they go, I'm going to war. I'm going to fix this by looking at blood. And he says, you made a habit of that. It came easily that way because you just made a habit. You've been going to war training. You got to see a little bit of blood, more blood, and now you see blood and all your response is, I'm going to win. It's just blood. And someone else looks at blood and just goes, oh my God. Yeah, that's usually Stephen. Yeah. And,
Doesn't people faith?
and that's also a habit. He's saying it's just a habit. And a habit begins with a decision. And that's amazing. He's saying you can create your reality and there's nothing that won't come if you make a habit of it. The habit is the karma. It's actually the impulse. The way we're seeing the world now, it's just that habit. It's that impulse. And we think it really is this way. It's just a habit of seeing the world. That's what makes us human. That's what's so amazing about this way of explaining the world. We go to school and we get told, you're a girl, I'm a boy, it's a girl, you're a boy.
He said, girl.
We get taught these things, you know, like you go to work, you go to university, you get a degree, you think this is how trees go out there, apples come from here. We've learned all the labels, and then we live by those labels. And it makes sense to us, and it works like that. But to see the world with those labels as possibility, from this point of view, doesn't come from the labels, it comes from the humans. Humans mean that you see the world this way. Animals don't see the world that way. Animal means they see the world that way. What is the apple? What is the world? This way or that way? Both and neither. That's what's amazing about this. When you get this, the habit that we were just saying, just about anger, is the habit of seeing yourself as a normal schmuck. Human that will die. That view is just a habit. There's nothing that comes without, that does not come easily with habit. The ultimate goal of this teaching and this practice is to break down that habit of seeing yourself as a normal human. And if you plant the right karmas, you can literally not see yourself as a human. And it will come like this. Normal, normal, human, human. Wow, maybe I was special. No, human, 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 human. Wow, I just saw something magical. Oh, look at that. No, human, 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 human. Because you've got a ton of habits that way. That's what these practices are for. All levels of the practices are to get you to a point, just like meditation. I don't know how to meditate. I don't know how to meditate. Oh, wow, I just meditate. I don't know how to meditate. You know, it's like distraction, distraction, focus. Distraction, 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 focus. Distraction, focus, focus. Distraction, distraction. And then you more focus, less distraction, until you're all focused. Same with this view. This is what he's training us to do. You are not Rachel the way you think you're Rachel.
You're actually made out of legs.
That's a habit. That's just a habit. And that, to me, that's stunning. That explanation is stunning. And this is, I think, probably the most important idea that we have to break, I think, in order to get the power of saying, I'm going to generate a habit of seeing my world in a different way, and it will look a different way. Like, I can't help seeing the world this way.
Who really made the things that make us angry? This thing they believe called the primal one, or the supposed self-existent being, never came about by thinking for a purpose to themselves. Now I should occur. If it cannot be with a thing that never grew itself, then what do you think can grow then? It must forever shift its focus to its object, a thing that never did come to an end. Isn't it obvious that if this self were unchanging, then like empty space, it could never act to do something? And even if it happened due to other influences, how could they act on something changeless? When they did, then it would stay existing as it was before. So doing would do nothing. Where is something you can say it does that has at all any kind of relationship with it?
This is hard.
It is really hard.
Is there anything else?
Yes, one more stanza. And so it is that everything depends on other influences. They on other inevitably. Understand this. Feel no anger towards any of these things like pictures of illusion.
That's hard, but you've all been to class, and those of you who have been to class know what that's talking about. Yeah, so go for it.
That's the three different worldview things.
Yeah, good. Okay, Jacqueline, do you remember that part?
The three what?
The three different worldviews. Maybe they're seeing what we would call God with the three, like all omniscient, all loving, and all powerful. Or there was like soul and Atman and one more.
Duck.
Duck.
Yeah. Not as in D-U-C-K, D-A-K. But here's the essence of this verse. We're talking about you're building virtue in your mind. You're building karmas that have a positive nature. So when prana moves, you begin to label things in a positive way naturally. That's just my reaction. But you grew it, yeah? You're also making efforts not to erode that goodness that you're building, that virtue, by getting angry, which is the main thing that erodes it. So one argument, he says, and I think it's the fundamental argument, okay? We would get angry at things if we thought they existed out there. When we do get angry at them. So the highest view of thinking it exists out there is taking zero responsibility for why this is happening to me. Yeah? And in our way, in our world, just like in ancient India around 700 AD, they had an idea that an all-powerful creator God made everything. And so the difficult verses about what would be there before it created itself was one of the arguments Master Shantideva said to those beings that said, why do you get angry? Who made all these objects that got you angry? The angry boss, the ISIS, the Middle East, who made all these objects? God did, right? And Master Shantideva goes, oh, let's look at that God. Your God of 700 AD apparently was a creator of everything and nobody created it. And if he's the creator of everything, he is one of everything. He's one thing. Isn't he not a thing? Yes. He's the creator of everything. That's why he's a thing. So then if he created everything, he must have been there before he was there to create himself. And that's impossible. So there is not a being like that that could create everything that didn't have something created before, or didn't have causes, which is the end of the stanza here. You can't think crazy that this world comes from nothing. We would call it Big Bang, yeah? You can't think that the original Big Bang, right? Because when I was growing up in the 80s, we only had one Big Bang. Now you've advanced, we've got many Big Bangs. The Big Bang before the Big Bang. Before the original Big Bang, yeah? So he's saying, if you've got anywhere in your mind the idea that someone else made all this stuff that you're getting angry at, if you don't understand that it's just your mind labeling an experience, if you think it's out there made by somebody, you won't be able to be strong enough to stop anger. Because deep down you're blaming it on someone else. Someone else controls you. You don't. And he's saying that won't work. You cannot free yourself that way. And he's saying that kind of God doesn't exist. But he's not saying put down other religions or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. He's saying if you're in the back of your mind, you've got an idea that someone else created it, then you can't fight it. Because you didn't make it. Someone else made it. So you can't unmake it. Right? And the three arguments were, our God, for example, the creator God I grew up with, had three qualities, basically. Creator of everything, same as duck, yeah? Which the Master Shantideva smashed. Can't be there before you were there, to make everything, if you're one of everything. Duh. But I never thought to ask that. 2, can you be all compassionate and all powerful? Love God, God loves everyone.
Yes, we can.
Yeah? And all powerful.
All loving and all
All
powerful.
powerful.
Those
How-
two together are okay. It's when you add the wait.
Can you be all loving and all powerful? Probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
But can that create this world?
Oh, sorry. No.
Can some being, something that has power to do anything in space and time, all things, and be completely loving, right? No hatred, just love. Can they create babies with cancer, rape, wars, ISIS, people killing each other, chopping up animals while they're still alive and pulling their skins, and can they create that kind of, can they have that kind of suffering in their world?
No.
So you think about it really hard, because the three qualities of the God I grew up with, the one I was told that created everything, which I still have in the back of my mind, was a creator of everything. And we just smashed that, right? So now he's got two legs. All powerful, can do the fuck he wants. Yeah? And loves everything. Can't have this world if you have those two qualities. Impossible to create this world. Because either you're a sadist, which means you're not all loving, means you have all the power to remove everybody's pain of all time. Why create a whole world and then flood it for 40 days because I made a mistake? You're not all powerful? Or you're not all loving? Which of the two? Because the babies drowning were drowning. There weren't stories.
This line of logic seems to, like, kind of go against the example when the Buddha killed them. Like if we're applying Buddhist principles to the story of the Old Testament God, couldn't you say that God was doing things out of love?
The thing is that Buddha is not all powerful.
Right, no, I know that, but I'm saying, like, the logic that Shantideva is using to discredit the God that, like we grew up with, or whatever. I don't know how much
No, I think that's the answer.
Buddha being all powerful, he would have changed this guy's mind instead of killed him.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I know that answer.
So he wasn't all
So
powerful.
it's not the same thing.
Had this God really been all powerful and all loving, he would have created a world where these bad things would have not happened.
Right, but what I'm saying is maybe the bad things are happening out of compassion and we're just not privy to that story.
No, the answer to that is if an all-powerful being wanted to test everybody's compassion or give everybody a little flavor or to move them or whatever, why do it over thousands of years and lives after lives after lives and chopping up beings without end?
Right. I feel like the answer I always got when I was a kid asking these questions was like,
Right.
God works in
Mysterious ways.
Right, no, but really, but like I
God
think,
is testing.
Yeah, but
right, but I think that we run with certain things in Buddhism too that are like put them on the shelf until you get realizations. And
that's different to it moves in mysterious ways and you better be
because isn't there such a thing as like, I mean, I don't know what the vocabulary would be in like Christianity, for example, but like
Bye.
bye guys.
Nice to meet you. No problem.
Take care.
Great.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Have a good dinner.
I'm leaving for a minute with
Oh, thank you. I don't think you need to, but we'll give it to the 3 jewels.
No, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Leave my donation too.
Can I have some? What's the concern?
It's not like a personal concern. I just imagine speaking with friends who are Christian, right? And that
I
is
wouldn't tell
what
them this.
I would say.
I would.
Well, no, that's not what I'm about. That's like not what I would. That's not what I would do. But I'm just imagining a conversation in that way, and I'm also thinking about Bible class when I was in middle school, and you know, the answer was always like very solidly like, you don't understand because you're not God. And I think like in some ways that applies to you don't understand yet because you're not enlightened. So couldn't you
That's
say,
different from what you can understand applying it. And logically, you can understand that if you had the power to do anything you wanted on this planet, and you had your heart full of love for every being, it would be impossible for you to create more of the same. You can understand that. That's not ununderstandable. And Buddhism says the same thing. You practice to your level until you get realizations, and then you go to the next part of the show. It's not saying, just trust us in full faith and go for it. It's saying, use your understanding, apply the fucking thing. It's not saying be a blank mind and follow me like a zombie. It's not saying that at all. It's saying you make these things internal, and if they're functioning, then that's dharma. If they're not functioning, it's not dharma. Because you didn't do it.
Yeah, to me also, like, I also come from a Catholic upbringing, priest and nuns telling me all bunch of stuff that I was supposed to believe. I think one of the big differences that I find from, and I value a lot my Catholic values now more than I did before.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found about the religion and the ways taught from that idea of God and the mysteries around them, which are different to the mysteries in Buddhism, is that the mysteries in Buddhism, for what I understand, have been experienced and experimented with over and over again by humans. And there's really, at the end, no mystery to it, but reaching there. Like saying, like, oh, you know, because I haven't been to Mount Everest doesn't mean that there's not a Mount Everest to be to. But there's people who have seen it. But nobody has been able to give me a testimonial of God. And I think that's where my vision of the Catholic God falls apart.
I feel like though, like to what Rachel is saying, that like I think of that hidden, very hidden, and like the subtleties of karma is one of those things that's really hidden, and that there is a part of me that like I struggle with. That's like, oh, I'm just supposed to accept the fact that I don't understand why this is happening, and that okay, I'll go to the emptiness side of things, but you know, like at the end of the day, I would like to know why, and I don't know, and it's because I'm not advanced enough, and like cause and effect, and that works for me for a while, but because of that time lapse, it's really hard, and I'm just supposed to like hang out.
I love that you brought that up. You're so clever, because that's really, if there's anything in that question, it's that. The Shinto Kokyu. You're so clever. You're so. I'm glad you're struggling there. That's nice.
I'm glad you're having a hard time, girl.
No, because we talked about the struggle part, right? Making efforts in those areas is a goodness.
I use those. I think I do probably the same thing. I use those experiences that are challenging. I don't know for sure which specific karma, but I'm much better now at identifying myself, things that I've done in the past that may have ripened, you know, maybe ripening in this way, and I use that as a way of trying to, I think about it a lot and try to understand, you know, why I did that thing in the past, and to resolve not to get into that place again, and not to continue those actions and thoughts that led me to having this experience now. There may be other times also, but it's interesting because I find the more I do that, the more able I am to start. It's a little scary, you know. You start to, you're like, oh damn, I do remember. Oh, I did do something. You know,
what's the 4 laws of karma?
You know, I did think something like that, and so like now, like we were talking, like sometimes walking down the street and somebody bumps into you. I just, you know, because it's New York, I never ever actually said fucking bitch. But in my head, I was like, fucking bitch, I'm gonna get you, right? But now, no, it's at least now I catch myself and go, well, it's just not good to think like that, you know, like maybe that person doesn't feel well, and you know, maybe their balance is off, or you know, they're in a hurry, or there are a million reasons why, you know, like it's my crap that's causing me to even think that they're doing it out of a bad impulse. You know, 'cause
Even if they were.
exactly.
You couldn't tell.
Exactly, because I can't read their minds. So, yeah, I love that, you know, because.
But that's a nice field of play, to think about the Shinto Kokyu, the very hidden part of karma, the subtleties of karma, because we get the gross level understanding, right? I think that's where practice is really happening. When things happen to you, and this is what's awesome about Buddhist practice. They're giving you tools, and there's 1,000 tools, techniques. Yeah, they will save you if you put them into practice, right? That's the promise. Save you from this suffering. But you have to put them on and try them. In that act of trying them, call karma something else. Call the hidden subtleties of karma something else. But they gave you a technique to play with. There's nothing in the technique. It's you playing them that will shift your mind in a certain way. So the 4 laws of karma are:
Karma is certain. Karma grows. If you did it, you will receive the result. If you didn't do it, you cannot possibly.
So now they gave you a working theorem, right? A working theorem. Now we're sitting there as Westerners most of the time going, is that true? Is that true? Is that right? Is that wrong? Is that right? Is that wrong? Yeah? That's instead of trying the system. Understanding is not a self-existent system, but it's a system that our minds are engaging with according to the way we understand things. And if the last 2, which I find stunning, right? We get the first 2, but the last 2 gives you no out to any emotion. Like no out. And it gets to be a really simple answer after a while. So instead of me, I'd say the last 20 years I've been practicing these things. Next year will be 20 years, yeah? Where I first got shocked into Buddhist practice. Well, this year actually, this year's 20 years, where I just went, Geshe courage, yeah? 15 years of that time, I've been bursting my head going, 15 years of that time, going, I'm gonna break that and pull that, and that doesn't work, and like fighting with it. And then in some areas it was working, and in other areas not at all. For me, I don't know, other people have really good karma. They're like, oh, I'm enlightened. The shift for me was, in that part, to get a realization that if I'm playing with this system, I'm not trying to prove it right. I'm trying to drink a medicine and see if it heals something. I'm not sitting there looking at the medicine and going, oh, well, the medicine one day, just drink it. Yeah? If I look at the world with that view, which I have to habituate, yeah, then everything that I've experienced was caused by me, right? Not can I remember it? Can I find it? Was it when I pushed my mom? Was it when I thought terrible things? What a waste of thought. Yeah.
No, was it a past life that you...
Was it a past life? Is it instead of being in the present, which is I am experiencing negativity right now. It must have come from something similar. Right? Where am I doing that in my world now? And here comes the play. If you're doing it subtly, act right now, because you've got a window of virtue. You just had a moment where you realized it's in you. You better fix it. If you can do something about it, go for it, right? Where am I doing that? Even the subtlest thing. So it might be sending a text, I love you, Stephen, or in your mind, you're addressing that karma. If you don't remember, if you can't, like I really have cleaned that aspect of my life. I'm pretty certain, yeah? I don't have a memory of having done that shitty thing. Now, you can get lost into, did I do it, or was it past life, or wasted window of virtue. You look at the effects, meaning it's in me, otherwise I couldn't perceive it. You are habituating your understanding of wisdom at that point. Going, there's no other place for it to come from than the projections. And I have no recollection of where. So, quick purification, wherever it came from, maybe this will be the very last time I experienced this thing. Destroy it with doing the four forces. Or, may I take it on for the sake of all living beings turn into bodhicitta. Yeah, everybody else that's lost as to where things are happening for them, may they have come to realize that this is the end of it. And just play with the system for 3 months, 6 months, a year. And then you will know whether the system is helping you change your mind. So you're not proving the system and still living in this world. I think most of the problems we have with Dharma is we're trying to, and I see this in tantric practice as much as sutra practice. We get information, it comes the laws of karma, or bodhicitta, or this or that, or tantric practice, and then we try and squeeze the normal way of being human into it. We're trying to rationalize how we can be exactly the same as we've always been, and now I'm going to call it Buddhist practice. I'm going to bomb ISIS. You know? He's like, yes.
Let's do it.
Let's do it together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to do that because that's what these creatures called humans do. If we want to stay here, which you're welcome, that's what you do. But then you look at it a little deeper, and this system is saying, if you try these clothes on, you'll feel this way. You won't know until you try them. I don't know if that helped you at all with the subtlety of karma, because that's one of those unanswered questions. But it's not, to me, it's not the same as the all-powerful God. It's not like that for me. It's a place where we're asked to consider what if it worked that way. And then you're given tools to do it, not just to trust them.
Right.
If it doesn't work for you, this is not your path. That's what it means, you know. Now, did you try it? Big question.
Yeah, and then it's like, did I try it? I thought I did, but then obviously I didn't, you know? It's like so slippery and slimy how quick your mind, like...
Moments of sanity, that's what I go through as well. I go through my few moments of sanity, and I go, when I saw the world clearly for that millisecond in meditation, or I'm going by that. You know, and whatever else my mind is doing in between, if it wasn't that, then I'm not trusting it as much as that moment. That's what really kept me going for 20 years. Seriously, I wanted to throw I wanted to go, you know, so many times. This makes no sense. People are still suffering. I'm still suffering. And why did this happen to me? And then to answer your question from before, you forget who you were 10 years ago. You think you've always been this, and that's not true either. I wasn't always this beautiful. Right?
You're getting more beautiful every day. It's crazy.
Yeah, now what do you do about all those people who don't think they're so beautiful?
Yeah, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
Floating. Bomb them. Learn English.
What did you say?
Bomb them.
Bumming is positive. That's a good part.
Should we do one more verse or questions? I did too much talking, and I actually wanted you guys to do more talking.
You talk better than all of us.
Thank you, Stephen. I love you. He's sarcastic and said, but your voice is so beautiful. Mm-hmm.
But they don't sing.
Nico, any questions?
I'm good so far.
You don't want to punch anyone? You want to punch him?
Me?
Yeah.
Punch me?
It's like, why punch him? You could bomb.
Yeah?
I want to punch the Dharma.
You want to?
In the teeth.
Tell me about it.
It involves jumping ahead though. Doesn't
Okay.
have to do it. Well, I guess it does.
I know.
So
You guys, if you remember being a kid and finding out like, oh, Santa Claus doesn't exist. If you ever followed that, I kind of feel that way now because it involves my question I asked you in my text message. Like, after studying the 6 perfections, studying joyful effort, it like feels really good to help others. It feels really good to have compassion for others. And I may just be like really disillusioned right now, but if my understanding of emptiness is correct, like, can I actually help someone who's hurting themselves? And if I can't, how then can I still have joyful effort if I can't actually help them?
This is another one of those on the shelf.
You're helping your perception.
But then I'm just helping myself, and that's not as fun.
But it's not you. Like Master Shantideva is teaching us, it's all interdependent, right? So it's like one part of the body to the other part of the body.
It's also having the desire to help. It's part of what you're trying to achieve. You may not be able to help everybody, but your intention is to help.
You also don't know that other people need help. They could all be in disaster.
Your perception of them needing that kind of help is a true perception. It's a valid perception. You must act on that valid perception, like being in front of the bus. Master Shantideva says why? Because it's pain. You've got to stop it. It's like the parts of the body. You know.
So I'm seeing someone as needing help because I have been needy in the past.
Yeah, if you identify as I as being Jacqueline only, the answer is short, not really. You know,
how does that address the joy thing?
Like, there's a Rachel here that I'm seeing, and behind that there's another Rachel that exists that can't be helped. Like, I feel like that's what you're saying. Like, there's a Rachel that's I'm seeing here, and I'm going to help her, and that's my perception of her. And behind that, there's another Rachel that exists.
that is self-existent.
And then self-existently suffering.
Yeah. Because there's a Rachel, and there's my view, and there's the only Rachel that I know, and that's the one I'm helping.
They
I
love
just
each other.
winked at him. You didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Does that help? Because I like those answers a lot.
Because otherwise it gets
It was,
nihilistic.
I was like that in Nepal with the dogs. And then Hector was like, they're all Buddhists in disguise. And I'm like, but I see them like dragging themselves in their front 2 paws, or like starving, or like being abused by shop owners and eaten by the puppy eater.
I don't know.
I actually think it's a question of expectation, not a question of correct view. Even though student's answer is right. I think for your particular question, I'm interpreting, let's get meta, I'm interpreting your particular question in the way that I normally ask that question, which is the only way I could ever see that question. Which is, I want to have a reaction to all my good deeds. I want a response to all my good deeds. Why isn't it coming? I've been such a good Buddhist all this time. I've been kind. Now that I've been kind, change. Why haven't you changed? I'm disappointed. I want to give up. That's not understanding the lag between cause and effect. I think that's what it is. And that's why, again, shamatha, meditation on emptiness. Because if you understand, the deeper you understand where the world is coming, could possibly ever come from, then that problem is resolved. You remove the expectation because you have certainty that it must arrive. Karma is definite. It grows. If you did it, it comes. If you didn't do it, it doesn't come. I did it, it must come. You drill that, and you have experiences. Hopefully, you have results enough that in moments of sanity, when you've seen it clearly, you get certain about that. Oh, the veil just lifted, and I just saw. Those years of practice just flower, and that one moment of insight is enough to feed you for another 5 years. It's not like we're good practicing Buddhists for 3 years. Ta-da! It's not like that at all. And that can be, I mean, Jacqueline, I had exactly the same low level of energy around that question, but it wasn't, it was about bodhicitta. It was about doing Tonglen. Geshe Michael taught us Tonglen. And then I'm so excited, I'm going to fix everybody in the world, right? And then he's like, but can you really help them? And I'm like, yeah, just taught us we can. He's like, no, they have their own experience. And I'm like, oh, why did you teach us that? What a waste of time, I'll never help anybody now. I mean, I didn't understand. He's like, you just told me something that's just going to help me? And you told me I can't be selfish. You just tricked me into being selfish. I hate you. Oops, I can't hate you. You're like, I'm stuck. I'm in the corner. I'm like, what was Evan's? This is like Evan's son. I wonder if I have it.
But go get to the more important part.
Of course you can. That's the more important part. How do we get it right?
One of the most beautiful stories that you told me with your first Stefan was someone that was going to retreat found out that her dad had cancer and was not going to go into retreat because, or was going to, or was not?
Was not sure. Decided not to go in for the full 3 years. Decided to go for a short time because her father had been diagnosed with cancer just before.
And so she was meditating on this for months. And then right before retreat started, found out,
a week.
The dad found out that they had misdiagnosed him and he never had cancer.
And she went into retreat instead.
And her perception was completely shifted.
One instant point.
And then he was changed. It's amazing. Yeah, that was.
It was completely unexpected. See, we think I'm doing all these kindnesses and the cancer's going to get less or whatever, and it wasn't cancer. But it was cancer for all those months, for real. It really was for them. The body was feeling treated for cancer, his mind had cancer, her mind had cancer, doctor's mind had cancer. One scribble on a paper, a result, no cancer.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Things shift, Kundun. Things shift. So
you're implying that she had something to do with curing his cancer?
Her perception changed and his perception changed. That's true. Her perception change comes from her efforts of changing her perception, a result of her karma. His perception changed as a result of his goodness. The doctor's perception, it just happened to all coincide, which created a perception in her that her tongue worked.
But that perception is also karma. I mean, to be able to be so clear and have a perception to be able to change that perception is also karma. So she was so like.
Karma is movement of the mind. It's not something out there moving your world. Okay.
Can I tell a quick story? I had a terrible habit of being late all the time, and it created enormous anxiety. And for some bizarre reason, I just couldn't motivate myself to get anywhere on time. And then I'd get someplace, and I'd have all these stupid excuses for why I was late, and which of course was never my fault, right? And no, it was always the train was late, you know, where there were a lot of people on the train I couldn't get on, or it was never about me. And I got really fed up with it. I just got really disgusted one day, and I said, I don't know how. I
were late. It's enough.
Because she just suffered from anxiety about being late.
But you know what? I didn't even notice. You know.
That's awesome.
I didn't even notice.
What you mean? You get so upset?
No,
No.
sure.
Other times.
Earlier, yeah.
No, today. Other times.
No, I wasn't upset today.
No, other times.
Oh yes, earlier, before.
Before. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, oh my god.
Yeah, this is a kind of reset.
Thank you for teaching the way to don't be. I'm much better.
We're all here for you, actually.
This is an intervention.
Yeah, we didn't mean to tell you. Yeah. Earlier.
You arrived late to your intervention.
Yeah. Jacqueline, did that answer anything?
It did, but I'm like still. I don't really believe that a Buddha would try to kill themselves
Yeah.
to teach a lesson, and maybe I just don't have karma to see that. So maybe I'm just not there.
There's so many ripple effects to actions we do. Yeah, so actions of mind, body, and speech. The reason karma grows is because the results are bigger, right, than that action. So the other thing I want to say about karma is when we keep looking at karma and how it functions, is we think, I must have done this horrible big thing. I must have this kind of horrible big thing in my consciousness, yeah? But you don't. You see, if you look back, it was just a tiny misdirection. Done out of ignorance, not knowing. Just an impulse. It's not like you're evil. It's an impulse. Yeah, that's the other thing about this. There's not that you're the devil. You know?
Sorry, yeah, I interrupt you. But the other thing about this, like when you're out there helping somebody, and where you do it with the intention to also help yourself, which I think it's very valid intention to have. Obviously, the helping somebody is to take their pain away, but you cannot, or maybe you should not, rather than you cannot, hold yourself accountable for the result on the life of this person. If she had done the tunneling and her dad had still died, he didn't die because of the tunneling. Or if
the tunneling will have its result.
Right, but in this case, apparently, it appears to have had the result on her perception of the dad.
That was a result of something else, actually. Yeah.
Very likely. Because of the delay of the result when you plant the cause,
yeah.
It's very likely that tunneling will have the result down the road. So sometimes it appears like you're not really helping that person, but the help for that person is not in your actions. In your actions is the help for yourself.
The help is just a perception too. We will never know if she didn't practice Tonglen, if the same outcome would have
100%. I agree 100%.
Nice.
But what I'm saying more away from the specifics and more in like the theory, practical aspects. When you say, I have a friend who's suffering, or I have a family member who's suffering, they're going through depression, and I'm here to help them, and they're suicidal, and eventually, unfortunately, they commit suicide, that doesn't mean that what you did didn't help them, or that what you did didn't help anybody. That just means that there was some cause that will turn into that suicide. That's independent from any help that could have come from you or anybody around.
Right, and the practice could have just been almost like an act of prayer, something that comforts you yourself. We don't know the results.
Right.
Except we know the flavor of the result.
Right.
If you know your motivation. That's it. And you don't know when.
But I think it's something to do with if you believe in the practice, you believe in changing your perceptions, and that in itself, you don't know the outcome. But if you believe in the practice and believe that it will change your perceptions, then whatever the outcome is, you can almost look at it as a result of your practice
Sure.
and what you did, however it turns out.
Right.
But if you haven't cultivated that perception yet, like the perception to validly perceive that your practice has had an effect on a being that you really can't go in and touch, really. Like how do you, sorry, I took that from you. How, like what Jacqueline just asked, why would a Buddha kill themselves? I think it's a really interesting question, but like the only thing that I come up with is like the story of the Buddha killing someone for their own good. So it must have been an act of goodness. And then the question is like, I think it would be like, well, what is it supposed to bring up in my mind that leads me to enlightenment? Is that the correct way to look at it?
That's the correct way to look at it. Just to clarify a couple of Buddha killing himself questions, okay? The two stories in the Jakarta tales that describe when the Buddha gave his body to the lioness and the four cubs. Yeah? That's a being killing themselves, right? He brought them to a cliff, and so he got them to eat his flesh. He wasn't a Buddha then, okay? This was one of the causes for him to be a Buddha. That being was a high bodhisattva, okay? And same with the being on the boat that had the perception that this other being on the boat would kill many beings, so they killed the person. So neither of those beings were Buddhas, just to clarify where those stories come from. How would a non-Buddha being see a Buddha, is the question. When Dharma arises in your mind, when you're having a perception of this is a hint at, I think, a hint at what it would be like to be a Buddha, an enlightened being that has perception of all things all the time, right? You can imagine the myriad of possibilities that is this very moment. So a being taking their own life, or a being passing, or a being having cancer or not having cancer. Whatever their being is doing, from extreme suffering to removal of suffering, you are having one perception that you're holding as that's what is happening. And just tweaking the thought a little bit, you could see how that could have a slightly different meaning as well as that meaning that I'm holding. And then if you can have two, you say, well, it could also have a third meaning, or a fourth meaning, or a fifth meaning, and you could see the infinite number of stories that can come from what I currently call someone trying to hurt themselves, what I currently call not being able to help somebody, what I currently call this. You could see how it can have so many other stories, and it's just like the prana answer I gave you. The data doesn't tell you the story. The raw data that we can't find because it keeps breaking down is just raw data, like prana, the sensation and energy moving in you is just that. And then the stories come, and you got this story. That's your karma. That you can change. That you can work on. Your karma contains other beings' karmas. In your mind, yeah? And your limitations in that. This is not a short ride out, not a 3 years study this, yeah. This is a path. So you could see that in that moment you had, I just saw that being hurt themselves or wanting to hurt themselves. And then the next thought that arises is, I want them to be okay, I want compassion. I can't believe they did that, I'm angry. wow, this will, I wonder what they thought, that would remove their hurt. I wish I could do that. 1,000 stories are going on that moment to moment. I just validated something about my understanding. I really want to help and I can't find myself helping, so I'm going to keep trying, I'm going to give up, whatever. Something's talking to you. One of those things talking to you, you could perceive as the voice of all the things that are talking to you, the truth of all of it, that it has no nature. And to me, that would be a Buddha speaking. Something that's taking you to wisdom is a Buddha speaking. So then what are you habituating in your mind when you have that link of perception? You're beginning to say, I can find the wisdom in all things. And then all things are talking to you, like a Buddha's talking to you. Then you've turned a useless situation into a useful situation. And that will habituate something else. You will have less useless situations. You just made a useful situation. Out of what seemed a horrific thing. It's a horrific thing. But it's not the only horrific thing on the planet. It's one of the things I love-hate about social media. Love-hate about social media. I can be on a stupid screen device and go, funny puppy, dismembered body, money, sex, rape, joy, kittens. And we're only looking at a tiny window of what really is happening this millisecond right now on the planet, all of it. That boggles my mind, right? We have this superpower to see everything that's going on in the planet, filtered through the things. But you really do see, I see the kids in Nepal. Did you see the puppy in Nepal that had the bad legs? It was one of the shelter puppies, tiny little puppy, but it had its legs growing out like that and its feet that way, and the back ones, and it couldn't walk. It was like on this part. But it was its tail was going. But it looked like an alien. Like, oh my God, suffering creature. And then you see some stupid poodle from Upper East Side, sitting in the Rolls Royce, Just the animal realm has this diversity of experiences, and humans have that. I don't think we're capable of experiencing all that with our sensitive minds, especially trying to live a virtuous life. I don't think we've got the capacity just yet. We have to grow it to have compassion like His Holiness has compassion, for example. And just look at the suffering, or Mother Teresa to look at the suffering and go, I can't see the suffering, all I see is the impulse to help you, which is going to help you. Whether it works or it doesn't work, that's what you end up habituating. This world is disgusting in that regard. We're really fortunate, really fortunate to have what we have. And everyone will have a suffering as horrible as that or worse, And you can. The biggest way you can do is get yourself to a state that you become an example for other people. The practical way that works here is remove your afflictions. Remove your triggers to hunger, to become a good person, like an honest person, a kind and sane person. Just people like kind people. People like sane people, and they become an example. My sister, for example, through a long period of our relationship, could only ever see the goodness in my sister and myself, any goodness that came to us of our mind or our reality, as competition and more evidence why she would never be like that. And you think that, I'm being a good example so you can see that it's possible to be happy and whatever, and then they're interpreting it as, you're just making me feel worse. The happier you get, the worse I get. It's like a no-win, right? And I was tempted, like for a while there, maybe I have to like pretend to have a crash or something. No, seriously, I had to. How do you become an example for other people, saying, look, by looking at my mind and meditating, I think my life is getting better. By practicing ethics, I think my life is getting better. Yeah, by being kind to people and not selfish, I think my life is getting better. Look, I've got a sexy boyfriend. Yeah, I want a sexy boyfriend. And then that my expectation is that's going to help people, right? And there's my sibling going, you make me feel worse. I'm depressed now. Every time I see you happy, I'm worse. It's horrible. So I had temptation to give up. 5 years. Every now and then she'd go, I was thinking about meditation. 5 years, you know, of just depressing conversations. And then 5 years later, I didn't give up. I was thinking about meditation. Hey, what do you recommend I tell my kids? Hey, and then it started, and it started. And now it's lovely. I stayed firm as the sun. With doubt, right? Like, oh, should I give up? Should I try? It's not working. You got to keep working at it. If you understand it, that kind, healthy, sane works, you have to be that for the world. That's the kindest thing you can do. And you cannot force other people to do it. We're working deep in our karmas to generate a result. Can't expect when it's coming. Dharmakata Sutra. A bodhisattva who's expecting a result is not a bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas don't think that.
Yeah, that sounds like, I mean, one of the things you said that jumped out at me is like, well, here's what I understood, is that if things are empty and I'm doing an effort to help them, is it's actually only helping me, so then now this all became a selfish thing again. And then somehow it feels like that ties into, if I was a bodhisattva, expecting a result, something about like, I don't know, that made me think. But I don't know if that's what you meant, but I've heard that. And what I come to think, but I don't know if it's right, is that like I was gonna do something selfish anyway. I do selfish things all the time. So if someone benefited, that's good.
That's cool.
Like I'm happy that
that's a really nice
that
one.
it might work out, but I don't know what the actual answer is to that.
No, I like that. That's awesome. No, I really like that answer because that helps. I think that really works. You sit there and, because we forget, right? We get lost in this philosophy so much, we forget the alternative, which is not really an alternative, really, you know?
Also, I think to me, like, I don't know, the word selfish implies only for me. So when you're helping somebody, even if it's going to help you back, you're already doing it to help somebody. So that, even if you know it's going to help you back, I mean, you might be doing it for that result, it's not only for you, so immediately it's not selfish.
Yeah. And Master Shantideva was saying that in the text as well. He's saying, don't try and not be selfish. He's saying that's our deepest impulse. Extend your idea of yourself to everybody and then be selfish. Because you're me, you're me, you're me.
No, so
that's why I said it's a question of expectation. When will the result come?
Right, and which ties into the second part of what I was going to say. The fact that the bodhisattvas are not expecting every result doesn't mean that they don't think a result will come.
Correct.
They know for a fact that because they planted something, it will arise. They just have no expectations of when it will arise and under what conditions.
Because they understand the last two laws of karma. If it's happening, it can. This is what it is now. I see. If it didn't happen, I didn't cause it. Okay. It's because they're firm in their dharma. Cool. Hey, we should do this in class.
That's no cooking, that's crack.
Okay, I'm having a Tonglen issue with Jacqueline. I'm sitting here and I want to make you happy right now. Not pretend, so don't laugh because I said it. I want a million eons of goodness to shower upon you. And every realization to get there. And it's not happening from my perception. It might be from your perception. You might be a stubborn Buddha. I don't know. No, but it's sort of like that, you know? I can't help but now experience the result of that want. And by extension, that result must include everyone in my perception, everything in my perception. There will come a time where I will experience that. It's just not now. I don't know when. But great question, because this is what we don't get to spend time in class, is to get to the nitty gritty of like, yeah, but what about this one? And what about that one? What about that one? I think that's enough for now. We should eat. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to share things like, it's just like a Japanese quote, or like, something like a grandpa generation, like keep telling you, continue things. If you help someone, it's actually not really help that person, like help yourself. And that person gave you a chance to have compassion.
Nice.
And then, you have to thank that person. And then also, like, if you don't help that person, but you could see on it. And then maybe, somehow, like, the things, and then karma is like a pull, like, doing things, like the pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing, like, hit one thing, and hit another thing, happening like that way. And then, but, your, the things you do to someone is, resolve in some way, in some time. And just, think for that person to have
The opportunity.
opportunity.
Give you the things.
Yeah, and it's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay. You don't see result right away, but it's happening in the future. You get to see, and it's things are done. Like you.
Thank you. Do we dedicate? Any more? No? So that's patience. I don't think we covered everything, but hey, that's what we've got. 2 more weekends. Yeah. So the next,
weekends during
no,
the week.
Thursdays.
Okay, long, yeah.
So just make sure you direct the karma of the heated and beautiful discussion to a specific event or being or person to dedicate it to something will benefit from the efforts you put in here tonight, and see if you can imagine it. Something like seeing emptiness directly, or seeing the results of your efforts to come to fruition. Oh, thank you, so nice. It's nice to have you in the house. This is the first time we've had Dharma, right? And we love it. Dharma.
Sounds like a fast food place.
Yeah, Dharma. Not like pop yoga. Talk about. Someone's got a business called Pop Yoga. They just started. So How did it get so cold in the summer already?
It's not the summer, it's already fall. The next fall.
Is it already next fall?
It's already next fall.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
We
well,
had
let's.
summer for a day.
Actually, before we finish, I've got 2 questions for you.
I'm done.
Keshe Michael is coming September 25 and 26. And we're going to be doing an awesome Dharma event and a Diamond Cutter Institute event, the first one ever properly in America. Well, the thing we go around, Diamond Cutter Institute, and teach business people around the world, and they love it, and it works, and it's awesome. And it's really the essence of Dharma in a very practical, non-Buddhist way. He's coming to New York for one night of talks, one of those nights, yeah? And we're putting the event together. We're also teaching the 3 Jewels community, right? So we're going to have one day of teachings, hopefully this Saturday. What I would like to do is create a group of people who can do more than just turn up to the meeting or help with the tickets or whatever. I would like to put it out there that for the Dharma Day, the day that we're actually doing things, we treat Geshe Michael like he should be treated, someone like the Dalai Lama. Yeah, and we blow his mind out of proportion because we made an offering so amazing. And I want the offering to be something like, I'm imagining, you know the Heart Sutra? Aryaha Bola Kitishvara Bodhisattva doing the Prajna Paramitas perceive the essence. So maybe somebody starts singing it nicely like you, yeah, and he thinks it's just going to be a silly offering of someone chanting the Heart Sutra. And then people begin to, with little drums, going, dun, 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 someone else in the audience, dun, 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 someone else, dun, 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 till the whole crowd begins going, you know, and then this thing is escalating. No, why no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no form, so sound, so smell, so taste, so. And then at the end, you know, you do gate, pada, samgate, be so hot. Complete silence.
Turn off the light.
Pitched into emptiness, you know? So that's what I'm imagining. I'm not saying that's exactly what it should be. Fireworks. But, you know, like something amazing. Something to go heart-opening to everybody, because then we will experience a different experience there. Also for the, you know, mandala offering, we could also begin same old boring mandala offering, and then maybe we have a very amazing choir that has practiced the mandala offering in an exquisite way, and then we break into that. Some kind of spontaneous singing or offering of sound and music like that would be just amazing. Yeah. So if you're up, or if you know any performers, or if you know any musicians, or if you know any drummers, because I like the idea of drums. Something unique would be really nice to offer him and the people that come with him, Jigman and all the.
Can we practice here?
That's why I'm talking about it. Yeah, I think we should have a
Your
drum
neighbors
circle.
should hear that.
Buddhist drum circle.
I have 2 drums in my apartment.
Can you play them? Do you know?
I have lots
Really?
of
It's easy to play drums. Just
Big
go
drum
like
bag.
this.
No, some people have no. Like,
I know drummers for days. Yeah.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like I could definitely ask around and see.
I think that would just be like such an awesome thing. Yeah. Yeah, this is the first time I've spoken out loud because only 3 days ago did they confirm. So it's now September, and I won't be here, so you have to do it all on your own. Yeah.
You're so nice.
That's intense. So what day is he gonna be teaching the?
Probably the
Diamond
20th.
meeting?
Diamond Institute will be 2 hours in a nice, expensive hall hotel somewhere in the city. We have to book the venue. We haven't done that yet. We'll probably have 100 people pay some money to make cover costs, you know, or renting the room or whatever else. He'll give a talk and sign books. We'll be like, and we'll get up real business people and talk to them.
Is it bathroom?
Yeah. Do you have the working on the
Same.
beginning and at the end?
Ah.
I've seen actual very good markets. I
My
have
pleasure.
Cool. That's what we're actually saying.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not moving from your apartment.
Yeah, it's hard to leave.
Just staying around. I'll be coming on. Look, we're still streaming. Hello, people.
Really?
These are Dharma Talks in Bushwick.
Still going.
And there's apartments.
Sorry.
About to come out. Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Serve your hard-earned money to the free jewels.
Oh, you can look at what the rest of the crowd is doing.
Yeah, these are
Woohoo!
please in English, please.
In English.
English.
English, please.